I'd like to welcome in now Nick Halter, a reporter at Axios covering the Twin Cities. So you know the governor well, I would imagine, Nick. Thanks for your time. First, just talk about some of the attributes that Governor Walz is bringing to this now newly minted Democratic ticket.
Yeah, I think he speaks well to some of those swing states that you just mentioned before: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. High school teacher, high school football coach, 24 years in the National Guard. You saw he looks comfortable in Carhartts. He can speak to that, but he also can show up at an LGBTQ rally and feel very at place there too. So he does have kind of he's able to appeal to sort of the whole variety of moderates and liberals. He has in Minnesota here too.
And Nick, you kind of went down that long list of credentials. Governor, congressman, Midwesterner, coach, teacher, military man, comfortable in Carhartts. What else is he missing though?
Well, I think one, not being from Pennsylvania doesn't help. But he'll be attacked on a couple of things. During following the murder of George Floyd by police, rioting for 3 nights in Minneapolis. He'll be criticized for how long that was allowed to go on. There's debate over whether or not how much to blame him versus the mayor of Minneapolis for that slow reaction, but it did $500 million worth of damage to the city. He's been on the local stage for a long time, and we've seen him as you've seen the last 2 weeks, which he's very good on the offensive. You saw him kind of do well in the auditions for this role, but on the defensive is a little different. If you push him off of his stance for a bit, he can get defensive, and sometimes that's when he might have a gaffe or two.
Well, and I do want to talk about that, Nick, on ways he could possibly hurt the ticket. You mentioned the murder of George Floyd. Again, Tim Walz was governor when that happened, the subsequent protests that happened after that. His response has certainly been criticized. We're already seeing Republicans attacking on that. We just heard J.D. Vance saying it during his campaign rally there in Philadelphia. Is this one of the issues that could end up hurting the ticket? And will Governor Walz, now the VP pick, be able to successfully defend himself?
Yeah, I mean, he said that given the situation, he did the best he could. Obviously, it was sort of an unprecedented time, and so we'll see. He's also accused former President Trump of sort of throwing fuel on the fire during that time. So Democrats, which is, he said he was tweeting when the looting happens, the shooting happens, and that was sort of ramped things up. So he's defended him how he's handled that before, but we'll see how voters react to that, or how much they even tie it to Harris too. Yeah. So.
And Nick, what is the overall sentiment for Walz there within the state of Minnesota? Because considering at the moment, as we've said, polling shows 57% of voters are not familiar with who Tim Walz is.
Yeah, he's pretty popular here. I mean, this is a blue state, obviously, but it's not deep blue like a California or a Washington or something like that. But he's won pretty comfortably both of his elections here. And like I said, I think, and this is what I think one of the big reasons Kamala Harris picked him, is that he's done really well at uniting the whole party. He came from he was more seen as a blue dog Democrat when he was in Congress representing a southern district here. When he became governor, he moved to the left quite a bit, but ultimately, and you saw from groups like far left groups in Minnesota who support him, but also centrist groups here support him as well. So he has done a pretty good job at sort of unifying that side of the electorate.
All right, and we've already seen on the other side, I mean, we just saw it moments ago, J.D. Vance attacking. Generally the VP pick does kind of play that role of attack dog. And certainly how Tim Walz defends Kamala Harris and her record will be crucial to that side of things. What is his reputation when it comes to speaking out, when it comes to speaking his mind? We know he is the person that's kind of now being credited for starting this viral reference of Republicans as being weird. So is he a person that is not afraid to speak out?
Yeah, I would say, I think I mentioned this before, but he is really good on the offensive, and that really shined through during the last couple of weeks. So I do think he'll be great in that role as an attack dog. What I'm more interested in seeing is how he handles more tough interviews from the national press.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.